REST API, what is it, why do we need it, and what does JSON have to do with it? I get these questions very often, which is exactly why I decided to create this video, where I will fully explain what REST API is, where it is used, what it actually means, what problems it solves, and how JSON or XML are related to it. The way I structured this video is the following. First, we will go through the theoretical part of REST API. We will understand what API is, what REST is, how applications were built before, how they are built now, and why things are done this way. Then, in the second part of the video, the main part, we will move to practice, where we will build a full-stack application using Node.js and Vue.js. Even if you are not familiar with this stack, everything will still be clear because there are a lot of additional materials in the description, and I explain everything step by step. We will build a complete system with a client, a server, that interact with each other via REST API using JSON. So in practice you will see why this is needed, how it works, and how it is used. In this video, I will try to explain everything in simple terms, without introducing complex concepts, so that you can understand it conceptually and abstractly. Because once you understand how it works, learning the details becomes much easier. The focus of this video is to make sure that you truly understand what REST is, and that you no longer have any questions about it. I also tried to compress everything as much as possible, so there is nothing unnecessary. Every minute of this video is useful. So if you don't know what REST API is, this video is perfect for you. And of course, if you find this content helpful, I would really appreciate your support. Like, comment, subscribe, you already know the deal. It helps a lot with spreading free educational content. Alright, without further ado, let's get started. Rocket Brain main part. So, let's figure out what REST API actually is. Before we move to practice, I suggest we take a step back, visualize things a bit, and understand what we are working with, why we need it, and what it all means. Before we talk about REST, we first need to understand the concept of API, because it is a more general concept. API stands for Application Programming Interface. If translated literally, application, program, interface. So essentially, it is just some kind of interface of your program. This concept is not limited to web development. It applies to development in general. Globe showing Europe, Africa, where API is used. API exists in almost all software systems. Headphones, mobile phones, microwaves, microcontrollers. Almost everything has an API. Lightbulb, why API is needed. Imagine you have two systems. System A, System B. They could be completely different. For example, System A was developed in one country. System B was developed 10 years later somewhere else. They use different programming languages, different architectures, different drivers. So internally, they are not connected at all. But if these systems have an API, an external interface, some kind of control points you can interact with, then you can pull these levers and change the state of the system. And this allows you to connect these systems. So communication between systems happens through API. And this concept is global. The entire world of software is built on interacting systems. Globe with Meridian's web development example. Now let's look at a more practical example in web development. Previously, websites were built in a monolithic way. For example, using PHP. The server generates content and sends back HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So when you built a site this way, you ended up with a static result. Everything was tightly connected. Backend logic, styles, HTML. This is called a monolith. It works fine, and many systems still use it. Mobile phone the problem. But imagine you have a business with such a website. Everything works great. But then you realize, backhand index pointing right, the mobile market is growing rapidly. Backhand index pointing right, and you need a mobile application. So you create a mobile app. Now the question is, how do you connect it to your existing system? Because your server works with a database and outputs data into templates. But the mobile app also needs that same data. Rocket API solution. This is where API comes in. If we create an API for this system, which allows interaction with the database, then the mobile application can work through it. So now, instead of directly working with the database, the client works through API. Warning: old versus new approach. Previously, there were two ways. Direct interaction. Interaction via API. But maintaining both is inconvenient. It leads to duplication, more work, harder maintenance. So modern development moved to a different concept. Backhand index pointing right, everything works through API. Puzzle piece modern architecture. Now we split the system into two parts. Backend, frontend. Frontend becomes a separate application that does not know anything about backend internals. Backend continues working with the database, and communication happens via API. Mobile phone, multiple clients. Now you can have multiple clients. Frontend, React, Vue, etc. Mobile apps, iOS, Android. Desktop applications. Admin panels. All of them use the same API. Fire, what is REST API? REST API is a specific type of API. REST stands for Representational State Transfer. It is a protocol, or set of principles, that allows transferring state via API. Globe with meridians based on HTTP. REST API is built on top of the HTTP protocol. HTTP is the main protocol of the web. Almost all interactions in the browser happen through HTTP. REST API simply uses HTTP capabilities. Open mailbox with raise flag methods, get explanation without browser part. REST API includes several types of requests. For example, GET, used to retrieve data. POST, used to create data. PUT, used to fully update data. DELETE, used to remove data. There are also additional methods. Patch, head, options, but they are secondary. Package data formats. Data is usually transferred in backend index pointing right JSON. It is the most popular format. There are also others like XML, but JSON is used in most cases. Gear, why it works everywhere. Since REST API is based on HTTP, almost any programming language can work with it. Java, Python, PHP, JavaScript. So it doesn't matter what backend is written in, what client is built with. They can all communicate through REST API. Brain summary. So, this is roughly how modern systems interact. Different parts of applications communicate through REST API. And this approach is used in the vast majority of modern applications. Clapperboard or UTRO added. So in this video, we've covered what API is, how systems interact, what REST API is, and how it works conceptually. Now you have a solid understanding of the foundation. And in the next step, we can move to practice and actually build something using REST API.